What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Destiny Gilliam, owner and founder of the Creative Reading Coach, located in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we provide the most simplified tools to teach your baby how to read, and we provide online reading instruction to your most challenged readers. Now, before we get started, please remember that you are able to click the description box and book a consultation with us to see if we're a good fit for your family. This video is so exciting to me because it is about the 7 tips that you should do to build a confident reader. And I'll give you a hint, it has nothing to do with you going to buy more workbooks, with you making any more flashcards, or with you having to run to schedule a meeting with the teacher. It's actually 7 things that you can do right now without any hesitation. So let's go ahead and get started. Tip number 1: how do you build a student to read with confidence? Number 1, you have to make sure that they have access to books that are on their independent reading level. Now, I recorded a video about this maybe a couple months ago. I don't know, quarantine's kind of got me all wonky, right? Independent reading level is so important, because basically what it is saying is that this is a book that your child can pick up and read by themselves. Where a lot of you go wrong at home is you feel like what they are able to do independently is way too easy for them, so you prefer to challenge them. It's like in your mind you equate a challenging text with being able to read, and that is just not the case. What happens is when you give them a book that is too challenging or too complex for what they're able to do, they run into 3 roadblocks. Roadblock number 1, they have a hard time decoding those words. Roadblock number 2, they have to make sense of the sentence structure. Yes, sentences can be difficult for kids to read, right? If there's a lot of words going on. And the reason why those sentences are difficult is because roadblock number 3, the vocabulary in the text. So yes, your child can technically read a more challenging book, but those 3 roadblocks make it way too difficult for them. And when they come across those roadblocks, guess what happens? They just shut down. And when they shut down, they don't want to read for you. And that is the whole purpose of you watching this video, is because you want them to read. So mom, stick with books that are on their independent reading level. Now, I hear some of you saying, well, Destiny, where do I get that information from? What am I supposed to do with that? You go directly to the teacher. You're going to say, hey, I want to teach my baby, or no, don't say I want to teach. I want to support my baby at home with what you're doing in the school. Can you tell me their independent reading level? And so what they will do at that point is they're going to say, sure, your baby is reading on da 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 da. Your job is to then go find books that support that level. You can do things like Reading A to Z. You can use readworks.org. You can go to your public library, or you can use a good old Google search and say books with reading level H. Okay? So once you find that level out, you're good to go. Tip number 2, you want to create a safe space for reading, okay? You might say, well, Destiny, my home is safe. Mama, it is. However, I want you to think from a perspective of a kid. We tend to make reading scary at home when we tell them things like, that book is too hard, that book is too easy for you, or you know what, you got in trouble today, go get a book and read. That is one of the things that you should really not do, especially to a challenged reader, because 9 times out of 10, if a student is having a hard time with the reading in school, right, and getting access to the content that the teacher is giving them, when they come home, you're supposed to be that soft and safe spot. They're supposed to feel okay with falling in front of you. But a lot of times they don't feel that way because they understand that you are frustrated, and that frustration is often rooted in fear that they're not going to make it. So I encourage everyone to create that safe space. It can be as simple as you saying, hey, we're going to read this together. I know that was hard for you. Ask me what that word is. Create that space for them, because if they feel like they can trust you, then they're going to do whatever you ask them to do. And that alone builds confidence, okay? Tip number 3, build in time for reading. A lot of people feel like you can just assume that your child is going to read. Some kids, that is the case. And some kids, depending on their where they are developmentally, that is still the case. However, I'm willing to bet your child is not running to pick up a book and read, okay? If they were, you wouldn't be watching this video. All right? So what you have to do, you kind of got to give them a little nudge. Now, remember, we want it to be safe, so that nudge can be simply and say, hey, you know, I found a book last night. I'm going to read it. Can you grab your book and we read together, and then we talk about it? You can do something as simple as that. You can also do things like, you know what, our reading time is going to be in the afternoons when you are done with, let's say, when you're done with making your lunch for school tomorrow. Whatever it is, but build that time in there, because that allows them to know and have an expectation of what's going to happen, okay? Remember, you only want that reading time, though, with what kind of book? A book that is on their independent reading level, okay? Tip number 4, I think we're on. I got to look at my notes here. Tip number 4, I talk about this and I scream it from the rooftops. You can see a video about this, I believe about 2 videos ago. Have them create a box of books that they have read successfully. Y'all, this works wonders, because they become so excited that they're reading all of these books by themselves. It's also really good too, because it eliminates you having to say, go find a book, go do this, go do that. They have that right there. It's like they literally can put their hands on a book that they know that they can read, right? And what does that do? Build confidence. So please get you a box. I put a little sticky note on my sons that says I can read, and have them read from there. Tip number 5, do not pressure them to read books that are harder. Please do not do that. Please do not do that. Please do not do that, okay? And I'm not telling you to not expose them to the books. What I'm telling you is, when you give them a book and it's too hard for them, and we talked about this similarly in tip number 1, they're going to shut down. So what I encourage is that you read the book to them first. You're able to have a safe space, because they're going to want to read books that they're not able to read, right? You can give them the vocabulary ahead of time. Like, it's so many things that you can do ahead of time, okay? So I'm not saying don't expose them to the book. I'm saying don't make it mandatory for them to read that book, okay? It's just going to make for a bad relationship, and nobody wants that. Tip number 6, be an active participant in their learning, okay? Like I said, well, I do actively participate. Yes, I'm willing to bet that you do. However, I want you to think about this for a second. If the only time that you're talking with them about what they're reading is when you want to ask them questions about a book, that's really not actively participating. That's you doing like a little checkbox off, like you read, I asked you a question, make sure you understand, go write your summary, right? If that's all that it becomes, and you're just telling them what they did wrong, would you want to work with you? No, right? Because that's not how we work in our regular life. We need good, positive feedback, okay? So become an active participant in their learning. That looks like having book clubs with each other. That looks like going to the bookstore and letting them show you what they like, and you buy it, and if it's too hard, you read it to them, or it's too easy, you still let them get it, but that's not something that you would just base their learning off of. So it can be done in a multitude of ways. Last one, I'm out of breath. Tip number 7. I say this all the time. Record, 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 okay? What that means is that simply you take and you record yourself reading that book aloud, so they can hear what proper fluency sounds like, okay? Then they're able to take and listen to that recording, look at the book, and follow along. And then at the end of the week, you can say, I want you to read it just like mommy read it. And then there they go, okay? So the only thing is, you need your phone, a book, and time. Thank you so much for sitting and joining this video. Remember, if you are ready to get started with our online reading program, click the link in the description box, schedule your consultation, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.